Yeah, it's fine. There we go. That's gonna do it right there.
That's the.
I think we're good.
The framing. Oh, you moved it back. I'm just kidding.
No. Yeah. So it's been a little while, but welcome everybody to episode 41 of Chewing the Cud. This is There we go. There it is.
Don't turn the fan on. What about this?
That's gonna be way too dark. Yeah.
Well,
all right.
We'll see.
Welcome everybody to episode 41 of Chewing the Cud. This is a weekly live stream where we sit down at the kitchen table and discuss things related and unrelated to regenerative agriculture. The way these things usually work is we'll start with some brief introductions, then we'll move into a topic for the week, and then once we discuss that topic as far as we feel is necessary, we just open it up to Q&A, ask us anything, just open forum discussion about what we're talking about, which this week's topic is brush management. So it can be about brush management, it could be about anything under the sun related to agriculture, it could be about something completely unrelated to agriculture that you just want our opinions on or whatever. And we'll just roll with it for about an hour or as long as it's interesting, and we'll try to get to everybody's questions, but we're sort of getting to the point, which is kind of exciting, that we can't answer everybody's questions in the time that we got. So we'll do our best, as always. And I think that's about it.
I think so.
Yeah. So you want to just do a quick little
intro?
My
name is Isaac, this is Connor, and this is Ben. We're interns here at Green Pastures Farm with Craig Judy. We run about 370 head of South Pole cattle, 160 St. Croix sired hair sheep. When we manage these animals in rotations throughout the farm, kind of mimicking the way the bison herds used to roam, the plains. And so, we're here to learn what we can from Greg. We're enjoying the process, enjoying the journey that it's been. It has definitely been a journey. Mm-hmm. We've been this last week has been pretty crazy. So I'll let Connor kind of dive into that a little bit.
It's really just been the reason why. Usually we do these every Sunday, and we've been good at it for almost a year, approaching a year. And this past week, maybe 2 weeks, we had to skip because it's just been a little bit white knuckle here for the past couple weeks, and it'll still be that way for a little while. So it was nice that we were able to get this in tonight. But anyway, you want to sort of give a brief. We don't need to go into detail, but a brief overview.
Connor's been thrown into the fire this year, so
to put it mildly.
Yeah, there's been a lot that's been going on. So like a brief update, I guess this week has been like Sunday. The reason we skipped was we went down to Kendall's place, which is Reject Ranch. He's the guy who manufactures all the bale unrollers. So we checked that out. Checked out his new setup. He's got some projects rolling.
Oh yeah, to say the least.
Got a lot of projects going on.
It's good though.
It's good.
Yeah, and then we came back from there, did the chores, and then we went out to another place to look at some bulls. So Sunday was super busy, and then this week we're up to 60 calves at this point as of today. We took them on about a 2-mile cattle drive with 25 of those calves being under a week old. So that was chaotic.
That was
I didn't think we were gonna make it.
That was a drive for the record books, honestly.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah.
Just calves trying to sprint back. It was brutal.
And we lost 2 of them, and then we found both of them.
Yeah.
Well, we found one fairly easily.
I posted a video on my page where I kind of talked about finding it or whatever. It was kind of cool. I got the whole reunion of the calf and the mother and everything, and so that was cool. But then,
we searched for a long time for the other one and couldn't find it. And then we went back out later with more people and were able to find it then. So successful cattle drive there.
Oh man!
And then we also took the bulls on about a 5-mile drive.
It was the longest drive Greg's ever done in the history of the farm. So that was cool to be
That
a
was
part
super
of.
cool.
It was just a long time. It wasn't hard or anything like that because the bulls are easy.
They're
But
super chill.
We didn't have a single one run through the wire either. I was kind of surprised.
I thought for sure, just because they get to wrestling.
Yeah, they were fighting. But they just didn't go through the wire.
There was a couple of times they backed into it and they were, whoa, and then they had shocked and they'd go running the other way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I think that's.
It's been.
There's a lot more, but
lots of calving troubles.
Yeah.
When you have that many calves in that short of a window, all the troubles that are spread out usually over the season are just hit you right in the face.
Yeah.
So.
And this year's not even going to be as concentrated as next year in theory. It's just more concentrated than last year, where we had a peak in the spring and then it sort of tapered off. To put it in perspective, we're about 2 to 2.5 weeks ahead currently of where we were last year as far as number of calves on April 25th.
We're about 20 calves ahead.
We're about 20 calves ahead.
Well, technically,
probably more
because
But anyway, we're ahead of schedule, and I'm sure it's going to continue to go ahead of schedule. So, in theory, we're going to be done about mid-May is when we should be done with all our spring calving, and then we have a small number of fall calvers that keep sort of
trickling out,
creeping up into spring calving. So in a couple of years, I mean, the theory is Greg's probably going to have a herd that's going to calve in a month and a bit, 2 months basically, and it'll be done.
If you think about it, like if a cow calves and she breeds back, in 21 days, she can only move up.
Yep.
2 months max. And so if they keep moving up, there's a point where that 4-month window that the bulls are out is going to stop any of that creeping up.
Yep.
And so it's like, I mean, if cows take longer than 3 months to breed back, then they'll start calving later, and then that'll be an indicator of a cow maybe that needs to be cold. But
it's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool stuff. But the point is, it's just been a bit hectic, and we'll get these done when we can. And this weekend we were able to, so super pumped about that. All right, so we'll just jump into the topic for the week, which is brush management. And this is definitely going to be more geared towards people that live in environments that are similar to central Missouri, where I'm sure a lot of you out there are in places that are similar to here, where left to its own devices, everything just wants to grow back into woods. Mm-hmm. It's not like an arid environment where plant spacing just increases and it turns to desert without some sort of management or intervention. It's the exact opposite. It won't maintain for the most part as pasture. It'll slowly get colonized by some woody shrubs that eventually give way to full-blown trees, and then you just have, white oak forest where you once had pasture over a number of decades. Mm-hmm. So in order to maintain a grass-based ecosystem on the vast majority of your land, I mean, the animals are a huge part of that, but then there's also management on your part, whether that's using the animals in a specific way or other management techniques that we utilize and we've thought about how you can sort of prevent that inevitable slip or descent into just basically unusable brush and ultimately timber in several decades or whatever. But there's like a lot of different categories, right? Like we can sort of jump in this from a bunch of different angles. I don't know if you got a place you want to start or
start with thorn trees.
Yeah,
just because
sure,
all of that.
It's a good topic.
So here in Missouri, in central Missouri, the honey locust and hedge is technically a thorn tree.
Yeah,
and like black locust, although those
we don't have a ton of them here, but really. I think they're more common in other places. Yeah,
the honey locust is the big one, and those trees will come up very all over the pastures. Almost every pasture has honey locust sprouts about 2 foot tall that'll come up, and if left to their own devices, they'll be 6 foot tall in 3 years, and then by that point you gotta either bring a chainsaw or you really have to bring a chainsaw to get them, to cut them down. And so there's a couple different ways that we kind of manage that through here at Green Pastures Farm. One is to just let a few trees go, let a few shade trees grow up, because the thorns are awful to deal with and they hurt like crazy. I stuck my foot
really bad
the other day.
Yeah.
So they're really a pain to deal with. But as far as the shade, they have what it's called like dappled shade, dappled shade or what I don't know.
Indirect shade. I don't know what the real
some
technical term is for it.
So it lets a little bit of sunlight through, but then there's also shade, and so that allows a lot of grasses to grow, right up to the base of the tree because they're getting still a little bit of sunlight. They're not completely blocked out. Plus, their leaves aren't big enough to choke out grasses when they fall.
Yep.
And so they're really good as like a savanna tree or whatever. Plus, they also have like bean pods, or it'd be called
a seed pod.
Like a seed pod, and they drop those every fall, I think.
Yeah, and there are some. I think it just depends on the tree because there are some trees that, they just drop tons and tons of those.
I think it also depends on the year.
And
too.
I bet it depends on the year too. I bet it probably is like some sort of a masting process or whatever. But
and those seed pods are super high in sugars, and the cattle just go nuts over them, and they'll eat. It's really good feed for the cattle and the wildlife as well. The deer love them too, and so having a few of honey locust trees, spread out across the pastures, if that tree is wanting to grow and it's in a good spot and, it's going to offer a little bit of shade where you don't have any shade, maybe think about letting one or two grow up. Obviously don't let them all grow up because it'll be a thicket. But a couple of them is not necessarily a bad thing.
It could be a really good
thing. As long as you just don't drive underneath it with
a
four-wheelers or trucks or anything, and maybe try not to walk underneath it either, or just be real careful. There's a lot of thorns that drop, and I guess there's a chance of like cattle getting stuck in it. But
we've never seen it because they hang out underneath honey locust trees all the time. And
it's one of those things like a honey locust is so sharp that as soon as they touch it, I'm sure they
just lift their foot right off.
Plus, it's not like it's got barbs or anything, so it's not like it sticks into you. It slides out pretty well. So I think that
although there are some barbs that'll be like barb and then like little barbs coming off.
As far as like it's smooth. The little barbs are like
pointing the wrong way.
Yeah, they're pointing so that if you take it out, it'll slide out.
Yeah,
it's not like pointing like that.
Backwards.
That would be awful. I can't even imagine like a porcupine quill.
Yeah.
But so maybe leave a few of the trees. Another way to kind of manage like the rest of the sprouts is either you can use like loppers, and you can go out there and just cut them when they're
smaller,
2 foot tall or whatever lopper size, and then we usually paint the stumps with it's a mix of 5 gallons of red diesel fuel mixed with a quart of
concentrated crossbow,
which is like a weed killer, and then you mix that up together, and then we just take a little paintbrush and we'll paint just the stump or just the stub that we've cut, and that usually does the trick. It kills it as long as you do it within 30 minutes of cutting the tree.
I think it's 3 hours.
3 hours? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
3 hours.
You should do it right after you cut.
Not wait 2 days.
Because
what happens is as soon as that tree is cut, it begins the descent of its sap into the tips of its roots because it's like a protective measure. And so if you get it in there right after you cut it, it draws that crossbow down the roots with the sap and just kills the whole plant. And so get it as soon as you can after you cut it.
And obviously, like if you're organic production, like you can't use that because it's an herbicide. But I don't know. The only thing I've heard about people using sort of similarly is like high concentrations of vinegar.
Yeah.
I don't know how effectively that works, but I've heard people using it. If not, you could always just keep cutting them.
Yeah, it's not like they're just gonna keep coming up. So as long as you understand that,
that's how you can manage it. But if you're not in an organic certification program or whatever, and you can use it, it's one of those things where, like, the amount of detriment that you're incurring into the ecosystem by introducing that synthetic toxin or whatever is probably minuscule in comparison to like the results that you're going to get as a whole in maintaining that, as opposed to turning into
it's really like a personal thing. If it's something that really bothers you, then don't do it. But it's not like some people will spray that straight crossbow on a tree to kill it, and so like we're not doing that. We're just taking a little dab, painting the stump, trying to get just that tree that we cut. Not get crossbow on anything else.
It's nasty stuff to work with.
It's so nasty.
But gotta wear a plastic glove.
It keeps it so. So, like, for example, if you're clearing a fence line, if you use brush killer, which we call it brush killer, the crossbow mix, it slows the clearing down to like 7 to 10 years as opposed to 3 to 4.
Because
so you're saving a lot of time that way. Like if you were to just cut it, that plant that you cut is going to have a lot of root a lot of storage in its roots, and it's going to shoot up another shoot really quick. Whereas if you cut the tree and you kill it, it's got to wait until another tree, plant comes in and then grows, and so it's like a lot slower progression.
Which is sort of getting into the whole treating the symptom as opposed to treating the cause of a problem, which is kind of interesting to think about, because at the end of the day, yes, the crossbow does work at killing the plant, but the reason the plant's there is because the conditions are such that plant wants to grow, and so unless you dramatically change that environment somehow, something else is just going to come in and take its place, even though you killed it. And so it's this perpetual cycle of having to continue to try to kill stuff, which in certain situations, I don't even really know what the answer to that is, as far as the honey locust tree is a savanna species. And so the grass-based ecosystem that you're wanting to cultivate, it will always want to grow there. It's not like
an oak or cedar.
Exactly. If it's some if it's an oak hickory forest or whatever, the honey locust it has no chance. It's not designed for that ecosystem, but you don't want that because you're trying to graze cattle. So it's like I don't know really necessarily what the solution is as far as a causal solution to the thorn tree in particular. But if you look at cedars, for example, a lot of that can go back to pH. Like if you can adjust your pH such that get your organic matter up to the point where it's just not hospitable for the cedars to grow anymore, that's sort of a way that you could, and the broom sedge, for example, that's another one. Like it likes more acidic soils or low fertility soils where it's not necessarily worth killing. It's more just worth trying to fix the cause of the problem as opposed to just trying to cut it off. Yeah, exactly.
It makes so the whole honey locust thing. It's like if it weren't for it being so annoying, it'd be like
it's like the perfect tree.
As far as working, it'd be so cool to have a huge grove of them.
Honey locust savanna.
Almost everything is covered, with a shade. Like there's little patches of grass, but then underneath is grass, and so the cattle almost always are in shade. They've got tons of those seed pods. Plus, honey locust trees fix nitrogen, so it's doing that for you too.
Yeah.
So that helps the grasses grow even better.
Other than the thorns, it's a miracle tree.
I know.
I love it.
I like them
but
too.
It
sucks to get stabbed by them.
Yeah, it just sucks to get stabbed by them, and it sucks to pay for new tires every once in a while. But man, anyway, we already had a rant on honey locusts a long time ago. But
honey locusts are a cool tree.
It's a cool tree,
and it's one of the only trees that will grow in heavy cattle environments. If you have an environment where you get a lot of cattle pressure, that honey locust is going to do fine. One, because it's got thorns, but also because it can take a little compaction on its roots. Because if you don't understand the way cattle work, if it gets real hot out there and there's shade, they're all going to be right there at the shade, and so you're getting a lot more compaction, which is not really ideal, but you're getting a lot more compaction underneath those trees. And so deciduous trees like oak or hickory, any maple, those trees, it's harder for them to get compaction on their roots. It's the same way if you have a driveway that's you put in a driveway right underneath a tree, it's going to probably kill the tree. It's kind of the same thing. And so, but the honey locust, they can take a lot more of that and a lot more of the nutrient load too.
Yeah,
a lot of nitrogen.
Because obviously they're pooping if they're hanging out underneath that tree for hours and hours on end. So yeah, I mean they just seem to do really well. But yeah, and then I guess the other big, we sort of touched on it already, but the other big area of brush clearing, if we're not just talking generally about pasture. And I guess before we move away from that,
let's do brush hogging.
Yeah, we can just do a little brief discussion on the brush hog, which we've done in the past, but I think it's just an important thing to cover, So
yeah, the other alternative to lopping them off is you can brush hog too, because the brush hog is going to cut them off whatever height you have your brush hog at. We usually run it 8 to 12 inches tall, a little less, 6 to 8 inches or whatever.
Yeah.
You'll still have stobs in your pasture, and you can't spread crossbow on them when you do that, so they're just going to keep coming back. But as long as you have a brush hog, you can keep them under control. As long as you get them every couple years.
It's important also not to have sharp brush hog blades.
Also, Greg has rubber-filled tires, and so he can't get a flat in his tire.
Yeah.
So if you have a tractor that's got, just regular tires, you're probably going to get a lot of flats doing that. So I wouldn't recommend it unless you had the solid rubber tires.
The reason you don't want to sharpen your brush hog blades is because when they're dull and it's moving so fast that even when it's dull and it goes whipping over the top of a thorn tree, it'll cut it off, but it leaves like a shattered,
like frayed
end to the stop. But if it's sharp and it goes across it, it'll leave a cut point on the end of it, which will just go right through a tire, or right through a shoe, or right through anything that goes over the top of it. So Greg just told us a story though, of I don't know who it was. It was his uncle or his dad.
Said don't cut or don't
sharpen the blade, because you would think, it'd make a lot of sense. It's just a lot less effort for the blade to cut. It's going to be easier on the tractor, that whole thing. But it's not worth it. Don't do it.
Just let it do its
Just let it do its thing. So brush hogging definitely a tool, but also it can be. It's a tool that we both, or at least I think, should be used sparingly. As far as you should be careful about the time in which you're going to be brush hogging and the amount of area you're going to be brush hogging, because at the end of the day, it's not as selective. It's more selective than certain things, but it's not as selective as going around with a brush blade on like a weed eater or loppers. Like, you're going to be cutting down all the grass and all the forage at that height across the entire area you're running your brush hog over, and all that area that you do that to needs time to recover from that occurring. And so if you do it at a point in the year where you don't get a lot of rain, you sort of shot yourself in the foot, because you had a bunch of standing forage there and now it's not there anymore and it can't grow back fast enough for it to be useful. So it's definitely one of those deals where if you're going to use a brush hog, I would recommend just using it in areas that are heavy thorn trees, where this is really the tool for the job. If you've got really interspersed thorn trees, just make a day of it and go out there and nip the ones you want, and maybe leave some that are positioned really nicely, or whatever floats your boat, so to speak. But brush hogging off massive sections of. I mean, obviously there's other factors to consider, because sometimes you're trying to please landowners with aesthetics with certain farms and that kind of a deal. So I get that every context is different, but if you're just talking about a brush management tool and a pasture management tool, I think it's very easy to fall into the trap of, man, that looks so good. I'm just going to brush hog the whole farm off. It's going to come back really vegetative, and it will in ideal scenarios, but it's a roll of the dice every time.
Yeah, because you never know when the rains might shut off. And if all it says it's going to rain Saturday, I'm going to brush hog this on Tuesday. Then Saturday gets here, you don't have any rain, and then next Saturday gets here, you don't have any rain. Now you're hurting big time, and you don't have you need a longer recovery. And then by the time your cattle get back there, the grass is this tall, and
then it hurts your winter stockpile, and then you got to feed more hay, and everything it's a domino effect. So
just be cautious.
Be cautious with it.
Be cautious.
It's a super powerful tool for particular scenarios. Controlling briars and brambles is another big one.
So the thing with brambles, if you turn cattle into brambles, they're going to get all kinds of little pricks and cuts and stuff in their legs.
It can lead to
blackleg. Blackleg is a deadly disease it's a deadly.
I think it's a bacteria. It's some sort of pathogen in this that lives in the soil or whatever.
And when they get a lot of little cuts and scrapes and any kind of break in the skin, that allows that bacteria to get into their system, into their bloodstream, and it can kill yearling calf in whatever a couple of days.
There's pretty much nothing you can do once they get it.
And it always goes after your highest gaining animals, your highest performing, because they're gaining so fast. Something with
I don't know what there's biology is.
I don't know. Somehow it targets the best animals in your herd, because
I don't know if they're just growing fast.
It was something with the blood, or when it grows fast, it grows into the muscle. You were reading.
Yeah, I don't remember though, but like sometimes I've heard it called overeating disease, which is sort of a misnomer because it's not necessarily from overeating, but it's the animals that are eating the most and performing the best that end up getting hit the hardest by it. So brambles are not a good deal either, but brush hogging is a really good tool for brambles because it's really hard to lop or manually take care of brambles. A brush blade, you could do it.
And also the best time to cut brambles is like before they fruit.
Yep.
And so that usually kind of lines up, I mean, depending on the place you're at, but that usually lines up with the time of year when you could brush hog because it's going to be raining, there's going to be some moisture, your grass is going to be in that spring flush or
late spring flush.
And so it's okay to take some brambles, get some seed heads knocked off, and then you're going to maybe have some better pasture. So.
Yep. And sheep will definitely take care of brambles, especially when they're shorter.
Mm-hmm.
If they can reach the whole plant, they're a good management tool for brambles.
Another thing too about the honey locust is they're good grazing for cattle and sheep too.
Yep.
The cattle will go up there, and even the big trees they'll go up. You'll see about 6 feet tall all the way around the tree. There'll be a line where the cattle reached as far as they could to get the honey locust leaves, ripped them off and ate it all. And so
it's so funny to watch them. They're like their heads up in the air, nip, 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 taking a little bit off.
Their tongue off.
Yeah, trying to get around a little bit of thorns or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool
the
though.
The sheep do really good with the honey locust because they got little mouths and they just like nibble, just pick leaves off of each little branch. Whereas the cattle, they got to take their tongue and rip, and so they can't really eat the honey locust as well as the sheep can.
Yeah,
they still will.
Yeah,
they love it. So
so brush hogging is a tool. Lopping, like mechanical.
Another one is the autumn olive.
Yeah,
that's another brush
for us. Yeah, for us here. Yeah, autumn olive. Is it autumn olive? Autumn olive is an invasive woody shrub. It grows. It can grow to like a small tree, like apple tree size or something like that.
They can get big.
They can get super big, and they got these branches that stick all over the place, and they'll take an area over really quickly. But again, if you've got a couple that are interspersed in your pasture, the animals will sort of prune them up in an umbrella shape, which is kind of, and then they use it as shade and they rub on it, and they'll eat it a little bit. Yeah,
really good feed. The birds, it's really good bird feed, but then the birds spread it when they eat the berries.
People can eat the berries too.
Yeah.
The berries are super high in antioxidants, so there you go. They smell incredible
also,
too in the spring.
If you've got a lot of brush or a lot of autumn olive in your pastures and you brush hog them and keep them in that vegetative 2 foot tall new growth stage, the animals love it. Like it's super high quality feed at that point. Like they'll take especially sheep, they'll strip it down to the bark, or to the stem. The cattle will eat them too,
eat as much
really
as they
well.
can, but again,
so will the deer. It's really good for the deer as well.
Yeah, but it's again one of those things that I would say almost even more than thorn trees can just absolutely take over if you don't pay attention to it. So yeah, that's another one to think of. But as far as tools are concerned for taking care of brush, your small sort of fine tools would be your loppers or your brush blades. Or
brush blades is in the
it's like a ninja star,
a weed eater. They've got like metal, like a
it looks like a ninja star.
Blade, and those things are scary. But they spin real
so
fast,
awesome.
and they can cut anything about that diameter and smaller.
So they're a really nice tool for just fine work of taking out individual plants, really being selective of what you're getting rid of, or patches of brambles or whatever. And then your crossbow also can accompany those two tools to help sort of seal the deal on a lot of things. And then your brush hog for sort of bigger, less selective jobs you could use a brush hog for.
If you're planning to brush hog for the the seed heads, you're gonna take a lot of those trees just as it is. So you never want to brush hog twice.
No.
Throughout the year, only once. Because one thing, it hurts your recovery. The second thing, it costs money to do. It's like like for Greg, I think it's like $3 or $1 an acre or something. $3 an acre maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
In fuel and costs to brush hog, and so you got to think about that too. It's just another thing. You're
and soil compaction as well.
It's taken from your
for the most part.
Your business. So
especially if you have a big tractor. You know, it's a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
Even big tires, it's a lot of weight on all those little mycelium microbes. And microbes and stuff. Like, get off my head! Yeah. It just squishes all the porosity in that top layer of the soil, so it's something to think about. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to see if anyone else has got some. And obviously, like tools. Animals can be used as tools in a brush management setting, whether that's through density and trampling. If you got pigs, I mean, pigs can really hit the reset button on an area, just breaking up the soil and uprooting everything that's in there and killing lots of stuff. They're really destructive in that way, but can be useful in getting rid of some really noxious things potentially. And sheep and goats will, defoliate some of those woody, big broadleaf species a lot better than the cattle will, so you can use them as a tool in conjunction with the cattle. So animals used as tools is totally viable. And then obviously unrolling hay is sort of in conjunction with that, where you use animal impact, manure, deposition, as well as mixing in with that hay that gets trampled into the ground. It's just changing your soil biology in a direction that you want it to be heading. And so, I don't know, with those sorts of tools, that's sort of, I guess, the gamut of what we've done here to help manage brush, but it's a constant battle. It's not like we've got it all figured out and the brush just sort of stays away and we just graze the cattle and it's all good. That is far from the truth. It's probably the number one category of thing that we do other than manage the cattle and build fence is managing brush. So, yeah. Curious to see what people's thoughts are on it. I don't know if you got a bunch of anything questions to add. You got anything to add?
Well,
no, I mean I'm learning as much as like everyone watching this.
You have experience with brush in Tennessee?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean it's a very similar climate to here. So pretty much all the stuff
similar
here
species.
Is there. I don't think we have as much honey locust.
I got the questions for you.
He's.
I don't know if you're gonna be able to. Oh, you already got it.
Yeah, on there. Yeah, he's been on there.
Sweet.
All right, Connor, the question man.
Connor, right. we had someone request or
suggest
that Connor read the questions. So it was good. We thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
So let's see. Someone commented on your haircut.
Thank you. Did it myself, and then Isaac helped touch the back up. Not that you can see that from this angle.
Is that your mom?
Yeah, that's my mom.
Gotcha.
Yeah. She probably was noticing it getting long. I got a cut, Mom. I did it myself.
Okay, wondering your opinion on fall calving versus spring calving when selling calves at sale barn as weaned calves. Thanks, guys.
So this is a good it's a good topic that we've talked about before, but the specific angle of the weaned calves sort of changes the conversation a little bit. You wanna
start into this bad boy. So spring versus fall calving, and when I'm talking spring, I'm not talking January because that is not spring calving. I'm talking April, at least here in Missouri. April, when the grass is growing, the temperatures are warm. So spring calving. Calves drop in April. They get to 7 months.
April, May, June, July, August, September, October.
They get to 7 months-ish. October, November-ish. They can be weaned. The problem with that, so if you're going to sell calves right after they're weaned, you can sell them at that time.
Yep.
Fall calves, let's say September, October time. September, October, November, December, January, February, March.
Yeah.
So those cows, so the spring cows, they calve, the grass is growing, since they calve, their nutritional requirements double with the milk production that they need to be doing and just to keep their own body condition up. So their nutrient requirements double, or their feed requirements, and right in line with when the grass is growing at its fastest growth. And so, the cow's got all she needs to eat. She's milking that calf. The calf is getting all the milk it needs to eat. It's really good milk. It's going through the summer. As the summer progresses, she's getting, still getting prime quality forage all the way through September, October time, when it's about time for weaning. You can wean those calves off. If you're going to sell them right after you wean them, that's a perfect time to sell them.
Yep.
If you're going to try to winter the calves as weaned,
It's a tough go.
If you're doing it 100% on grass, you're gonna have a hard time keeping keeping weight on those calves because
they need something in addition to the grass,
or like hay or stockpile.
Yeah.
Because once the grass goes dormant, the nutrition value of that feed goes way down, and it's more of a maintenance ration where the cows, they can survive on that because they're not trying to grow. A calf is trying to grow. It needs a lot more nutrients and minerals and things to grow that frame and that body, put on condition. And so if you're planning on weaning and keeping overwintering the calves, you're gonna probably have to either have some kind of like cover crop that you'll be strip grazing, like high quality winter feed, or feeding some kind of like grain
or supplement.
That's what a lot of people that do winter calves or cattle in general is they've got their hay, they've got their stockpile, they also give the cattle grain. If you're looking to make a profit, that's not a way to. It's hard. It's really hard to do it.
I'm not saying people can't do it,
right.
But there's also the other aspect of it, which is like the grass-fed like environmental aspect of it that is negated when you're supplementing grain. So
let's do the other coin. So the calves are born in September, October. It's not as big as the spring flush, but there is a jump in the grass growth of the cool seasons grass in September, October time. So there's going to be a little bit better feed than there was maybe 2-3 months ago for those cows. So they'll get a little better feed, but they're going into winter.
Yep.
And so they're at a time in their life they're needing the most amount of feed, and they're looking at a time frame when they're going to be getting the least amount of feed over as far as like comparison to the rest of the year. So that cow, if she calves in September, October, she's going to have to take that calf all the way through the winter till March when you can wean her off. And there's some ranchers in North Missouri that's what they do. They have all fall calves, and they've bred over the years. They've culled any cow that can't fit that paradigm of calving in the fall, taking that calf through the winter on poor feed, and then weaning in the springtime. The benefit of that is if you are planning to keep your calves after they've been weaned, you're weaning in March, April, May time, at least here in Missouri.
Yep.
You're looking at the peak growth, and so that calf, as soon as he's weaned, he or she's looking at the best feed that she can have the rest of the year, and so that's a time. If you're going to be keeping your calves, it's a good time to wean. You just have to get over, or you have to have the right genetics in order that cow can take that calf through the winter.
Yep.
Be suckling a calf and also trying to keep body weight on herself.
Yep. So I guess to recap, if it depends on what your market, it depends on what your market is for the calves. If you're not going to be weaning at all, which is like what we do.
Yeah, so I guess
there's no real reason to calve in the fall. You should really be calving in the spring, where you're lining up that nutrition, like you said, with the lactation of the cows, right? The high nutrition of the spring grass with the lactation of the cows. If you're selling freshly weaned calves, you could also still do that, no problem. If you're going to be hanging on to those weaned calves for a period of time to put weight on them or whatever, you really got to think about, if you're doing 100% grass-based with no grain supplementation, you should really think about fall calving and just understanding that you're going to have to cull and select your cow herd to be okay taking calves through the winter on less palatable feed.
Let's do a little promotion right now.
Yeah.
If you're following Greg's YouTube and you saw the video of 100 heifers for sale, those heifers are out of the herd that the guys manage like that.
Yeah.
They calve in the fall. They make that cow keep that calf through the winter time, and they wean in the spring right in time for fresh grass to grow.
Yeah.
And so
that's sort of the nutshell.
If you buy those, that might be a way to do it. But,
yeah, it's true.
Or breeding your own genetics that way.
But like anything, just depends.
Mm-hmm.
Just depends on your situation, which is a convenient truth for us because whatever we can't give you absolutes. It's like it works for us, works for this situation, may not work for you. It sort of like covers it, but at the same time, it's just reality.
It's just what you gotta. I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect
solution for every situation.
For this situation, having the calves in the spring, that mother raises that calf all the way through the winter. In the wintertime, she doesn't have much. She's not giving much milk. She's
just a little bit,
just like enough for that calf. It's like basically giving the calf grain, but it's on grass because the mother's eating and making the milk. And so that calf is getting just a little bit of nutrients through the winter, and that keeps it healthy and doing good. And so when the spring comes, the bulls get taken out, and so those calves are weaned. The heifers stay in, and sometimes, most of the time, the mother will wean that heifer, the yearling heifer.
Yeah.
Sometimes when they don't, and she starts stealing milk from the new calf that the mother just had, we'll have to put a ring in her nose, like one of those weaning rings. But that's kind of an abnormality. Usually that's fine.
I'd say it's like less than 10%.
Oh yeah. We haven't had to do one yet this year.
This year,
60 calves.
Well, we had to do one last year, but I'm saying like not weaning, like the mother not weaning her calf from last year.
Yeah.
It's probably like 10% or less, and then it's even less than that where it becomes a problem.
Because even if that other calf's sucking, usually that mother has enough milk right after she's born that calf is fine.
Yeah.
Now if you have we had the one heifer.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to keep watching her. But she.
Yeah. Sometimes if it's a big heifer, even from last year or the year before, sometimes they can really put down some milk compared to a calf, and it becomes problematic. But that's when the weaning ring comes into play, and those seem to work for us pretty well. So I think that covers that was an in-depth fall calving, spring calving discussion.
That's a cool one.
There is
like that. That debate.
There is a video on YouTube where we went over it, but this one that I'll clip out is like an even deeper dive, just because we're talking specifically about weaning times, which I think we touched on in the last clip, but not to that extent. So
there's a lot of benefits to each.
Yeah, it just depends
on the situation. So it's like if you can understand the parameters behind it and the benefits of each, you can then tailor it to your own situation better than just guessing.
Yep, for sure. But what we got?
Next question is, do you lease or own? And I can actually answer that.
All right, let's hear it.
Us three, we don't do any of them.
Yeah.
But
we're just along for the ride.
But Greg, he does both. So he owns some of the farms that we are working on, and he leases some of the farms that we're working on. So
what would you say, like, pros and cons, disadvantages and advantages to either or? You know what I mean?
Yeah, pros, like, to leasing is, it's economical. Like, you don't have to make payments on it. If something,
you don't pay taxes.
Yeah, like, you don't have to pay property taxes, anything like that. If something goes wrong, it's not, like, your property, like, and not, like, saying, like, don't mess it up, but, like, if something happens that's out of your control, it's not your land, you know?
Yep. Tornado comes through and just wrecks the whole thing. It's not your piece of property, but
I'd say cons, it's not yours.
Yeah.
And like,
you gotta listen to the landowner.
You gotta do what they want. You gotta make them happy. You got to please them and try and make sure that they're you're keeping them satisfied while also trying to do what you're trying to do. As far as owning land, the pros are, it's yours, so you don't owe anybody anything or for it. Unless you took out. That's a con too. You gotta make payments and stuff if you don't own it. Pro would be, you can do what you want. Yeah, you can manage it the way you want, any way you want.
Cut any tree down, plant anything.
Yeah, put anything anywhere you want. You can put a pond here or there.
That's a big thing. Infrastructure, you can invest in infrastructure setup because it's yours.
Yeah.
To me, the biggest drawback of leasing, despite the fact that it's incredible, it allows you to gain access to large acreage without a lot of money. One of the biggest drawbacks to me is the fact that it's a tenuous agreement, even in best case scenario. Even in a Greg scenario with a lifetime lease scenario, that's probably the best case scenario you possibly could get with a lease, which is essentially like you're owning it. But at the same time, given a once in a gazillion chance that landowner, something crazy happens and they need to sell the farm for family reasons or personal reasons, or they go into hard times or whatever, that's their right to do that. And so regardless, you could have the rug ripped out from underneath you, in theory at a moment's notice. And there have been people that we know this year that's happened to their leases and stuff like that. And it's like, man, if you put so much time and effort into,
and money
into repairing a piece of land, and it's key to the amount of cattle that you can run or livestock you can run, and there's always that like outside chance that it might get ripped out from underneath you. But at the end of the day, though, like it's a lot better to actually have access to the land than to just not have it at all. And so
because maybe you can find another pice of land.
There's definitely huge advantages to leasing, but there's also some serious risks involved with leasing as well. It's just it's that balance, and just understanding the whole deal for sure.
And I think for guys like us, we're just getting started. So
it just depends on the scenario.
We don't have the resources to be able to buy land. So it's not even like a...
Yeah, it's at this point it's not, but it's like it's just something to think about.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
In the
future, because who knows what the future holds and what you end up in control over or
it's a great way to get started.
Get your
feet underneath you, get your your capital up to where then maybe because I think the ultimate goal is to own the land because then it's yours. You have control over it for the rest of your life.
And it's a good investment for the most part.
Yeah.
Like as Greg says, they're not making any more of it.
Nope. So. It's only going up.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a good topic. I mean, Greg's made a really good living and a name and a legacy off of leasing land. And so, it works. We live it every day. It definitely works. Yeah. It's just there's advantages, disadvantages to everything. Like there are certain scenarios where it's like, man, I wish we owned that so that we could trench a water line and not have to worry about it. You know what I mean? Or spend a bunch of money, clearing a ton of woods or whatever. You know what I mean? But you don't want to do it because you don't necessarily know if the landowner.
10 years.
If you have it in 10 years, exactly. So good discussion.
Next question. What do you guys think about the likelihood that people adopt and support regenerative agriculture for mitigating or resolving climate change? Have you seen opinions change near Greg or change at your home states?
That's a good question. That's like what I'm in it for, to be honest. Like we all come at it from like slightly different angles and sort of paths that we want to take, moving forward. And there's a lot of similarities in what we want to do. Like we all want to be a part of this thing moving forward. But for me, that's really what I came at it from, is that angle. Because, I studied environmental science in college, and that's something that I've been super passionate about for a long time is, making sure the planet's doing okay and, making sure that our kids are still going to be able to enjoy it. And so, to me, in my opinion, mitigating climate change is like a massive, massive deal. And I think this is one of the only viable solutions that we've got. Is managing livestock properly as a tool. But it's such a nuanced issue that where livestock can do an incredible amount of damage environmentally and climatically if used incorrectly. And so
it's not the livestock's fault.
It's the management fault. But that's the reason why it's such a tricky deal. And it's going to be really hard for there to be any sort of top-down legislation or regulation involved because it's so nuanced. It's so hard to regulate because it's so different depending on where you're looking.
It's like a little control game where each person has to be able to like recognize an environment and adjust their management to fit that environment. It's not like there's a cookie cutter answer over the whole United States or the whole world.
Which is what a lot of legislation and policy is looking for. Is looking for sort of an overarching one size fits all. Because there's like it's so hard for them to be granular and specific because there's millions and millions and millions of people that they're trying to manage. And so I'm not blaming them specifically for like not adopting it because I see how challenging it's going to be from a top-down perspective, which is why I think the only way that this is going to become sort of a major player in the food system and therefore in the like climate improvement system, I guess you could say, is from the bottom up. Like I think the only way that it's going to happen is if people, consumers start wholesale preferring products that are raised in a regenerative manner and marketing that as such and increasing consumer awareness as such. But then also people like us really getting into it and spreading it through doing stuff like this and internship programs like we're doing here, and like that education piece is going to be huge as well. But I think then taking those small to medium scale players in the game and just continuing to replicate them and grow, but then also there's going to have to be some larger scale players in the game as well to really make this thing actually have some weight behind it where people have to pay attention to it. Because right now it's a lot less fringe than it was 20 years ago.
It's starting to gain some awareness.
But it's such a long way to go for it to be like a solution.
Majority. Like it needs a majority in order to become the solution.
Yep.
Or at least a good
and that's what I'm really curious about is what this thing looks like if you can scale it, and I don't know necessarily the answer to that. It might be it doesn't work at a scale that can really be implementing some serious change. I don't really think that's the case. I think it can be. I just don't think it's been done.
We were just talking about this last night.
But anyway, that's something that gets my gears turning is thinking about that kind of stuff. But I don't know if that answers your question at all, but just what I got. You guys got anything to add?
I guess that raises a question in my mind because I think of Ian in South Africa, right?
Yep.
Like, that's a huge operation. So I don't know if that's the kind of scale you're talking about.
Yeah, no, and I know I read Call of the Reed Warbler by Charles Massey, which is an incredible read and book. It's big and long, but it's awesome. And it's all about Australian regenerative agriculture, and there's like 250,000 acre ranches that raise 50 to 80,000 head of beef cattle, and it's like in a regenerative manner. And I don't know a ton of details about it because they don't go into like super granular nitty gritty about day-to-day stuff about how the operation works and really really what's going on behind the scenes and whatever. But I mean, I think there's people out there that are doing it. I just don't think there's a lot of noise being made about the scalability of it, because I think in the sustainable ag and regenerative space, there's this pushback against scale and against like for fear of it becoming like industrial ag. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like I understand that local. This is getting to a whole like related tangent, but it's still like related to this. But I think the movement of like local food and trying to get decentralized local food, I think is super important and really valuable, and you should always be supporting locally grown and produced anything whenever you have the chance to. But I don't think from a practical standpoint you can create a food system that's solely based on local food. Like I think the global economy is just so far down the road of people shipping stuff across country and across the world that you're just going to have to embrace that. And the only way that you can really like have a positive change on like a global scale is going to be if you can match that same sort of level of scale with proper management and proper practices. But at the end of the day, I think that's like why I think it exists. I just don't think there's a lot of attention put on it because the spotlight really is trying to be focused for good reasons, is trying to be focused on smaller, medium scale, decentralized food system. When I think that's important, I think there's also needs to be some focus on like how do we make this thing big and make it like a serious player and on the world stage. So anyway,
something that
it's my rant about this whole deal. But
tell us how you really feel.
I don't want to go any more real than that. It wouldn't be fit for YouTube, but it's all right. Get that video pulled. It's all good.
Oh my. Lovely.
You guys anything else to add?
What was the question again?
I don't even remember what it was.
What do you guys think about the likelihood that people adopt and support regenerative?
I think you did a good job.
I definitely think it's on the right path, and in the last 20 years it's grown more than it's grown huge. It's way bigger than it was, back when it was like Joel Salatin and like three people supporting it. Now it's like people are starting to wake up to it, and so I think that's super cool. My big thing is that this is where I differ from Ben. I'm focused on, I really like the whole food aspect of it and feeding like a community,
local food,
well raised, food that's nutrient dense, and just like bringing that awareness, which is just it's like a different part of the
equally
solution.
Important,
right? And so it's like It's coming, and it's just like it's just a constant trudge. You just got to keep trudging on and hoping and and waiting for it to start to pick up speed, because there's going to be a point where it's going to start to gain some serious traction, and it's like a snowball effect. Once you get a lot more noise and buzz around it, it just grows kind of exponentially or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Spread the word.
That's right.
If you tell 5 people about it, if 40 people watch this thing, 5 people. Let's do the math a little bit easier.
200.
It's like 200 people.
Yeah,
you know what
4
I mean?
times 5.
And so it's like, spread the word. Spread the word about regenerative ag.
Spread it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are starting to pay attention. Like, it's not a quiet thing, anymore at this point. It's just getting that word out. And so, and I think I see, both aspects, right? Because our cities are, at this point, too large to do it on a small scale.
Yeah, for sure.
But we still need small scale stuff, but we do need that large scale thing, because with the number of people that are alive at this point, it's just not.
The thing is, like, the small scale is really good at feeding a community.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, the big cities, it's like either you get rid of the big cities,
which is not going to happen,
or you find a way to supply it.
So you can have those large scale operations supplying cities, and you have small scale operations supplying small.
Because with the scale, you can begin to ship, and you can it's more affordable, makes more sense.
Like, imagine going to the grocery store or buying meat online, and it's hard to find commodity beef. You know what I mean? Like, imagine
that'll be the day.
Yeah. It's like corn fed, grain fed is the rare abnormality. You know what I mean? And the vast majority of it is just standard 100% grass fed. It's really sort of how it should be, because one is a opulent luxury of inputs. You know what I mean? And the other one is the cheap way of actually doing it. It's just not. Right now it's subsidized
because it's subsidized, and the cheap prices of
the whole system is geared in that concentrated animal feed production style versus the grass-based style. It's if you could turn it on its head for what it really is, that would be wild.
Which you could do, because the amount of land that's used to grow all the whole
topic, but it's true.
Would be able to provide
for sure.
all that. So
anyways, the amount of just coming out here and seeing the amount of land in CRP, Conservation Reserve Program, which I shouldn't talk too much because I might get some heat.
It's all right. I can take the heat.
How do you say that an animal regeneratively based, grass-based system is not going to feed the world, when crop farmers they crop a land, they run beans on the land for 3 years, and then they put it in CRP and just collect payments. It's like that land is not being used for any kind of food production.
None.
And that's crop land that's subsidized.
CRP is government subsidy.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The intention of the CRP was good, to keep stop bad things from happening, as far as erosion or things like that.
Yeah, and wildlife habitat or whatever.
But that's not feeding anybody.
You can do both. Is the crazy part. You know what I mean? You could feed. And I know I can hear people right now. Well, you guys are just raising animals. Like people are still going to want to eat pasta and bread and all that kind of other stuff. But there are systems that use both, and it's not something that I'm super versed in at all. But the whole animal cropping synergy is a thing that a lot of people are working on, and they're regenerative cropping systems. Yeah, super interesting, cool. But not something that I don't know enough about it to go on any sort of rant about it. I don't know if you
check out Gabe Brown.
Yeah,
he does a lot with that's more cover crops, but still it's the same concept of being able to integrate, because like you said, we still need bread, we still need pasta. So how can we raise these grains, these small grains, for human consumption in whatever.
Yeah, utilizing.
With the animals as well, benefiting from it. Because you think about the amount of land to grow corn and soybeans, the two commodity crops, and even wheat. But I guess wheat's kind of in the bread category, so we won't consider that. But it's the majority of like corn, I think it's like 70% of corn is
I don't know what the statistics
goes through
is.
like, cattle that they are not even designed to eat corn in the first place. They're designed to eat perennial pastures, and so.
Anyway,
so if you just removed all that corn land,
right?
Put animals on it.
You can still run small grains, but then you just mix in the animals into grazing, and then you're also getting the benefits from the manure and the disturbance of the soil, and then if you start factoring in like no-till, then you're building carbon, and then it's just like a way better system.
So, yeah. Anyway, I was thanks to whoever asked that question, but now I got more haters than I did about 5 minutes ago, but it's good. It's all good.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Gotta put it out there, the truth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Just speaking the mind.
And we're not attacking anybody. We're just we're just saying what we think of the situation.
Not anybody specific.
No.
What do you think about crosshair sheep ram crossing hair sheep ram with wool sheep ewes?
So like a hair wool
ram
hybrid
on wool ewes.
That is above my pay grade. I don't really know.
I don't know what would happen.
I don't know like what the dominant gene is. Like, would you get like lanolin in the hair? I don't know if that.
Are you wanting
you want a wool sheep that sheds, or do you want a hair sheep that produces wool? You know what I mean?
Oh, wouldn't it be cool if the wool sheep shed and then you could just go pick up the wool? You wouldn't have to shear it.
There's no way people have
self-shearing sheep. Yeah, there's no way people. That definitely doesn't work like that.
It'd be sick if it did.
Maybe big shearers. You know what I mean? Like big shearing companies have decided to really just squash that research. No,
that doesn't exist. You can't
do that.
You're gonna pay people.
The big clipper corporations needed to maintain their stock shares. Anyway, I don't know. All joking
someone
aside,
breed a wool sheep to shed
to shed wool,
and I'll buy it.
To be honest, I don't know. I mean, like on all seriousness, I have no idea. I don't know. I'd be curious if someone has the answer out there, though. I'll throw it out to the people, and we'll see if anyone
throw it out to the masses.
Self-shearing sheep.
Man, we're not going to get to hardly any questions.
It's all right. We'll just answer a couple more. It's just they're big juicy questions, and it takes a little while to answer.
This has been so fun because it's like you guys have you bring up topics that like we couldn't think of on our own, and so it's super cool. But
I just went into contract on 40 acres. It has been row cropped in corn, but my question is, with only 40 acres, should I AI or rent a bull instead of keeping bulls on the farm?
Good question. Man, people are just firing away tonight. Like these are solid questions.
Obviously AI is an option. You'll have to purchase. Which some AI schools, if you go to like AI school, get your certification to breed cattle with AI, they'll provide you a nitrogen tank with the completion of the school, because you have to pay for the school or whatever, and then you have to obviously buy in the semen that you want. The problem with AI is it's not. Even the professionals have a hard time getting 100% success rate. Like there's always some that don't breed just from breeding is
it's not real.
Breeding is such a complex.
I mean, it's real, but
it's such a complex process, and there's so many. Believe me, I know.
It used to work at a bull stud for.
But I mean, like
a little while.
Yeah, when you take that, you take the bull stud, you have to collect the semen, you got to process the semen, you got to freeze the semen, then you got to get the semen, the semen, then you got to get the semen out, then you got to warm the semen up, then you got to breed the cow when she's in heat, when she's in standing heat, so she can take the. It's like there's so many things that can go wrong.
Along the whole process.
There's a lot of people that do AI, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it like it is. Yeah. And so, if that's something you want to do, you can go that route. Also, just an idea to throw out there. If you've got a couple, producers that near you, maybe you like 3 or 4 of you go together, purchase this bull, or a couple of bulls or whatever, and you can
communal bull herd,
own a quarter of this bull, and then you just take turns breeding your cows or something, or
it's like an alternative to leasing essentially.
Maybe it's like just 2 people, and then you just like flip flop it.
I don't have the experience that you have in AI, although you were on the other side of it.
I was on the beginning
collection side of it. But still, you know more about it.
I've not personally myself done AI, but I've seen people do it.
Yeah, but you know a lot more about it than I do. But so let's just throw that on the table. But given that, I would try my absolute hardest to figure out a way to get a real bull.
I would too.
And use a real bull, because it takes a lot of the headache out of the whole matter. And yeah, I mean, it's just, you can't replace the real thing. I mean, like, you can in theory, but there's a lot less things that can go wrong if you can get a bull on your farm. And you just, I mean, you know, like you have the animal sitting there in front of you, and you're like, this guy is gonna have influence over the rest of my herd, as opposed to this
looking at a
magical catalog with, you know, in theory it's in here.
A lot of the catalogs which, I mean, it's not. It's just like selling a car. You get the bull up, you make him look pretty to take the picture, which makes you know you're trying to give that bull every opportunity you can. But if you buy a bull, you're looking at that animal, you know,
and you get to see him in his work clothes.
Exactly. So there's that too.
Yeah, but personally, I would try to figure out a way to rent, or that communal bull share thing is like, that's a good idea.
The only thing would be like, he could, you know, it'd be hard to breed all at the same time. Like if you all wanted to breed in July to get spring calves, but maybe you combine your herds and let them breed them all at once.
Yeah,
and then you kick them to, or if you could find like
that's
like a 10-acre piece.
An idea. Okay,
if you can find like a 10-acre piece that you could rent, you know, 2 miles down the road or something, and someone's cool with you know, grazing or whatever. Maybe you could set up little paddocks and like rotationally graze them by himself or whatever. But
yeah, because really, like, the issue that we're talking about is with 40 acres, it's very difficult to separate a bull off when you don't want him in there all year, and so therefore owning the bull outright is a difficult option, because
if you need to smell him, he's gonna
get there, and it's not like, oh, you can just put up some poly wire and he'll be fine.
You gotta have either 5-strand high tensile or like
even then I wouldn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just such powerful animals. They figure out a way.
They smell calving.
If you wanted to get them.
Imagine if you were a custom bull breeder. You know what I mean? Yeah, so like you had your own bulls, and you had like a herd of them. And you could come to people's farm. Yeah, and so like you graze them just like, you know, bulls for the majority of the year, and then when it's time. But then you, over the summer or whatever, you have contracts to go and breed people's herds for periods of time. And so
you bring like 10 bulls here.
Yeah, 10 bulls here, 10 bulls there. You run them, and then you come back and you collect them like at the end of the deal. It'd be kind of interesting. So cool. I just don't know like if there's a market for it or not. Don't steal my idea. No, I'm just kidding.
Imagine if you had like 200 bulls.
Yeah.
Then of course, how would you have to buy in the bulls?
I don't know if it's a viable business model. I just thought, I was like, I don't know. It'd be kind of interesting if it was.
You'd have to like have a producer that would sell you the bulls, the genetics.
Yeah, like you have to have contracts with producers to like keep cycling new bulls in, and maybe you also have part of it where like you have the service where you're bringing these bulls to people's farms and then taking them back for a fee, but like they have the option, like leasing a car, they have the option to buy the car after leasing it, and so like at a discount or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So like.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
That is.
You're like a professional bull leaser.
We'll have to tell Greg that.
Yeah.
He's going to get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll tell Ian, and that's Ian's next.
Yeah. You heard it here first. Chewing the Cud. Anyway.
Episode 42.
Episode 40, I think 41.
41.
Yeah. I could be wrong, though. I'll look at the records when I post it for real. But, yeah. Interesting stuff.
That's an interesting topic.
We got another banger of a question, because I think we're going to wrap this one up.
Yeah, it's almost 9 o'clock.
See, I'll just kind of scroll through them.
If you just pick whatever one you want to answer. These are good though. Sometimes we get a lot of questions, and it's not a knock on the audience at all, but it's just sometimes there'll be nights where we get questions where they're like pretty easy to answer quickly, like they're relatively simple, and that's totally cool. Like we're good with that. But then there are nights like this where it's just like, I mean, each of these could almost be a whole topic in and of itself, and so it's cool because it gets us to think a lot.
It makes good content too, like videos and stuff.
Yeah, for people to play back and be able to watch. The only downside is we don't get to a lot of people's questions because we'd just rather fully flush an answer out as opposed to try to rush through it.
If we don't get to your question, try to maybe remember it, and if you post it next week, we'll try to get.
Or DM me or DM Isaac, and
we could do like little. Maybe we should start doing that. We could do like little topics during the week or something of like a question that people have or something.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know.
But comments and DMs are always available for either of us if you want a question answered. It's just and there are some questions that I get asked, and I'm sure you do too, where you can only answer it so much in written form. It really needs to be a flushed out conversation because it's just a little bit too complicated and nuanced to go back and forth, and you don't want to like give somebody information that might get twisted because you're not able to fully explain yourself. You know what I mean? Where
it's hard to explain what you think on text sometimes.
Yeah, and you can. I mean, some of these questions probably talk for like 20 minutes about a specific question.
There's no way I would.
There's no way you'd be able to text that out. So, but if you got like questions that you feel like are more tangible or you want something specifically answered, we're pretty good.
We're an open book.
At least I'm pretty good at responding to most people that I get through DMs, or if you really want to get a hold of me, DMs is the best way. But if you comment on any of the posts, I'll see it. So
So apparently it's been going in and out a lot tonight. So that's just been a thing. I think one of the viewers said they're gonna.
It's one of those deals. Usually the file is pretty clean. So if it was going in and out, I should be able to get a good download from it, and I'll clip this out, and the full version is going to be available on YouTube at some point. So
is that your dad?
Yeah.
He said he's gonna text you about funding a booster. For a cell signal booster. But
go fund me.
All right, so here's the last question. Do you feel like a handling system could be designed and efficient for both cows and sheep? At what point do you think it's necessary to have a chute or a sort chute / turntable for sheep?
For sheep.
Yeah.
I'd say
if you've got muscle and brawn, like.
Yeah, but I'd say that more than like what we've got, it becomes, even with us, it becomes problematic.
That's what I'm saying. Like with what, like 160, 100, like probably anywhere from like.
You could probably get away with 200.
Up to like 200. You can kind of, handle sheep in a cattle facility. You just got to do a lot more
manual labor.
And then also, if you've got, like gaps like that big, what Greg has done is he'll take 4 foot or 2.5 foot tall woven wire and wire it along the base of every, panel, every gate and everything, so that a sheep can't hit that and slide through and, be out on the road or whatever. So
it works.
It does, but if you get into any kind of numbers like 250, 300, 400, 500...
Even if you've got manpower... Yeah, it would just take so long to sort.
If you're not as juvenile as us, and you don't want to be manhandling sheep,
it's hard work.
It's probably worth investing in the sheep, especially if the sheep is equal to your cattle as far as like...
If it's your only thing... Definitely. especially if you're doing it on a production scale.
Yeah.
Like, you definitely need a chute.
There was a guy in North Missouri that we went and visited. His name was Glenn Moraine or something. And he had this handling facility in this big hoop barn. He used to have that's where he used to kid. He used to run nanny goats. He used to kid in that barn in the middle of winter. Anyways,
doesn't do it anymore. It's all sheep.
Greg turned him around to sheep. Him and his dad, and now they run all St. Croix of Greg's genetics.
They run more sheep than we do. And
so he's got to shoot, all kinds of wrap around little gates and panels and stuff. But then the sheep will come in, and he's got this little sliding door, and it's a scale. So I'll stop the sheep, weigh it. If it's a ram or whatever, if it's the 60 pounds or whatever he wants, he'll let it go one way. If it's not, he'll let it go the other way. He sorts them by weight, and then he also has this thing he built. It's a chute, or a head catch. They'll come in and you catch their head, and then it's got hydraulics on it, and it'll turn the sheep. So the ram's like this, and this is his butt. It'll turn him upside down, so that then his parts are facing you. It'll literally flip the whole sheep in a circle. You can
upside down.
You can castrate him. And then it'll put him back down, and then you can let him go.
Yeah.
And it keeps you from. So what we have to do is we have to grab the ram, flip him up,
hold him by his back
get kicked in the
legs,
face,
have somebody else with the little bander with a little rubber band,
and sliding the 2 little testicles in there and banding them up or whatever.
Yeah.
So with that, it's all mechanical, and so that was a super cool little deal, gizmo he built. But
yeah, you definitely need something like that, especially also like with our sheep. We only get the sheep up really once a year. If sheep are twice a year. If sheep are you're right, twice a year. Once to sort them for culls and then once to and then once to for sale.
Yeah.
But if sheep are your deal and you're getting sheep up multiple times a year for either butchering or taking to sale barns or selling to customers or whatever it is, I mean, it just becomes the more times you got to handle them, the more time you're going to save, you with a shoot. And so it's like even with 150 ewes, or 200 ewes, which we say that you could probably manhandle if you have the people or the personnel to do it. That's with us only bringing them up twice a year. If we had to bring them up 5-6 times a year,
definitely worth.
It'd be too much. Like it'd be worth having some sort of a sheep specific handling facility.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be crazy either.
No.
There's a guy, their brothers, Hopping Brothers out of Oklahoma. They used to run a bunch of sheep.
They don't anymore.
And I need to draw. Get the pen
We've drawn this before, but it's like the way that it was a super low tech way of sorting sheep really effectively. And all it uses is hog panels
and two guys
and a stick with a trash bag. It's like, and just incredibly fast. We've drawn this before, but it'll be good for you to see it too. The Hopping Brothers, Greg bought sheep. I think some of his original sheep he bought from these guys in Oklahoma. They got out of the sheep business a while ago, but they were in it big for a long time with these sort of parasite resistant hair sheep. I think that was all they did really. But Greg went down one time to buy sheep from them, and this was sort of the sorting situation that they advised.
All right, so
just don't try to shake the table.
Yeah. So there's a guy standing here. All the sheep are over here, and there's a guy here at the gate. And so, like, say he has rams here. Am I on the?
It's fine. Just roll with it.
And like, say ewe lambs here, and this guy standing here would using just his body would let a certain number, let 1 or 2 go at a time, and he'd call out ram, 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 and so he'd keep this gate open, and as soon as he'd call ewe, he'd open this gate, and that ewe would come, up into here. And so just by doing that, because with sheep, if they see sheep in this pen and they've just blown past this guy and this gate's like that, they're going to run right into here, same way as the other way. And so something as simple as that, I hope that caught it on video.
Yeah, we'll see.
They were able to sort, Greg watched them one time. They were able to sort I don't even know how many they were
like 100 ewes or something like that.
In no time at all. So
yeah. Well, with that, I think we're gonna call it. It's late. We gotta get to bed for chores tomorrow morning. It was a good discussion, really good discussion. Again, I apologize for the quality. If you really want to if it cut out on you really badly and you want to hear something that we said, I'm gonna repost this file onto Instagram immediately after this. But then by Saturday, it'll be up on YouTube, the full length as well as clipped out. So look for that. Thanks for joining. Hopefully we get to do this next week. If not, apologies. We'll be back in action for real, consistent stuff about mid-May is the guess. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.